Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Workflows and Espressos. I am your host, Meaghan Myers, and I have two legends here with me today, and we have moved heaven and earth to get this episode scheduled for you. Alex and Annie, welcome to Workflows and Espressos.
Well, thank you for having us. And yes, I think we did have to redo calendars multiple times, but
I was 90% of the problem in the multiple times, so I will take the fall for that. But yes,
I feel like we need to insert that Taylor Swift song. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me.
Like, it got to the point this morning that I'm like, if I have, like, I will not let anything let me cancel this appointment this afternoon. Like, I don't care what is happening. Like, we are not canceling on Meaghan again. But thank you for having us.
I thought about emailing you guys. And being like, we should reschedule. And then being like, I'm just kidding. But it became like funny toward the end where.
Yeah. I was just watching it go back and forth thinking, we'll get there someday.
Yeah.
Annie, you were like kind of on the sidelines for it. You were just like,
I didn't have a conflict. So it was kind of like, I'll just go.
You were fine, but it was us that were.
Yeah.
But
we'll figure it out. We figured it out though. So we're here. So we're happy to be here.
Yeah.
I feel that here. Okay. So I was just telling you before we hit record that I have literally no idea. So for those of you who don't know, Alex and Annie have a very, very popular podcast in the industry. And I have no idea how it started. So I'd like to hear the story. The people want to know. Tell me the history of the real vacation rental, the real women in vacation rentals. The real women on vacation.
We have like a timeline of this. So
there's a timeline, and I think I'll kind of start, and Annie, you can kind of fill in too, because I think we both have different views of it at that time. But we'll be 4 years in November, which is absolutely crazy. We started in 2021. And this was a time where, COVID had passed, the conferences were just starting to get back into swing, but during COVID, we were all about Clubhouse, which I was just saying this to somebody earlier. Like, I don't even know if Clubhouse is even around anymore, but that was all that that was all the rage. And it was audio only, and you had to be there in the moment to listen. There was no playbacks. And Annie started doing some. We both got involved in a group of like STR leaders that was a lot of different people from all around the world, and we were tasked to take on different topics. And she had me come on for a couple about direct bookings and about activities and upsells and stuff like that. And afterwards, we just said, that was a great conversation, not just because of us, but we had other people in there too. And we thought there should be a way that we could record this and put this out. And I think that kind of just jokingly, we said, well, maybe we should do a podcast. And then the way that it kind of formed was, we're like, well, what would we call it? And, there's the brand Alex and Annie, which is the jewelry brand. But one of us came up with, we said, what about Alex and Annie? It's our name. So, it can't get in trouble for it, right? So we figured, let's roll with that. And then we came up with the Real Women of Vacation Rentals, like the Real Housewives. Like, we wanted something fun and playful because we knew this would be, just a passion project for both of us. And announced it at VRMA San Antonio, which was the first conference. Everybody was back from COVID. And just letting people kind of know about it kind of thing. And the reaction was something we weren't even expecting, that people couldn't wait to hear what we had to say, which we found just
hilarious,
bewildering. Everybody wanted to know what we had to say.
Our husbands would disagree, but and
we're like, okay, let's do it. A lot of people want to hear what we have to say, so we got to figure out something now. And it from that point, it's been no stopping us now. We've been extremely consistent for 4 years and shown up every Wednesday. I think we've only missed 2 maybe in 4 years. So, but it's been a heck of a journey and a lot of fun.
Yeah. I think
how many episodes do you have?
Well, we had the 200th episode earlier this year where we did the podcasters. So by now we're probably 220, I'd say.
25,
somewhere around there. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Did you have any idea it'd be as big as it is?
No, I didn't.
We thought, we joke about it all the time. If it hadn't have been for Amber Hurdle, we never would have done, we did our first episode and just told our story, how we got into vacation rentals and what we were doing. And then, so our first guest was Amber. We had to record 3 or 4 different times. And if it hadn't have been for her being patient and just saying like, you got this, don't worry about it. And she didn't really know us that well, which was so funny at the time.
Yeah. We hadn't even met her in person yet.
We hadn't even met her in person. She just agreed to do it. But she was coaching us through it. She was like, don't worry about it. And she was gracious. And then when we finally met her, it was like instant love. Like it was just like this, the universe brought us together. But we give her like all the credit in the world. If she had not been honest to be like, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it, like we would have given up, because it was just like, we didn't know what we were doing. Alex was like, like we could literally get back from San Antonio and Alex is like, here's the email for this. We're registered for this. I've got this site. I'm like, what are we doing? I don't even understand any of this. And she's like, I don't know either, but we're starting it all. So it's just like, she believes in like putting you out there, like the universe will take care of it. And so far that's worked for us. Like you got to step out and do it. And Amber was exactly what we needed to kind of keep us going. And then it just, all of a sudden it was like people wanted to talk to us, like people that, I'd been on the vendor side for a little bit, and these people would never have taken my phone call or returned an email or my connection on LinkedIn. And all of a sudden they were like, absolutely. How do I come talk to you? And I was like, ooh, this is an interesting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you, like, when you started, did you have to go to your employers and say like, hey, this is something that we want to do? Are you okay with this? Or obviously your respective employers at the time, or were you just like, let's freaking do it and it'll be a spare time, like passion project?
It all came at a very interesting time in my life personally. So my mentor, Roy Clyburn, who was the owner of Condo World that I worked for 12 years to that point, he had just passed away. And he knew that Annie and I were going to be starting a podcast. He never got to hear one of the episodes, but it was funny that summer leading up to us, like kind of formulating this idea, I had gone on Will Slicker's podcast and John Stokinger's and Mateo's. And then also when Matt Loney had a podcast. I was on 3 podcasts in a row, and he was alive at that point, and his office was next to me, and he heard me from the other office. He could hear everything I was saying. And after each one, he came in and he said, God, this is like, because he loved hearing me tell the story of Condo World and what we were doing. He was so proud of it. And he was like, this is great. And then when I told him Annie and I wanted to start a podcast, he loved Annie too. He had met her a couple times. And he was like, this is awesome. Like, I think it's going to be amazing. Like, it's just, it's further growing the reach of Condo World through these connections. And, the sky was the limit. But so he passed away, and I didn't ask for permission. I just did it. But we continued on. But we talk about that on the show quite a bit, because I didn't see it as an issue. I don't see conflicts of interest, apparently. Somebody pointed out to me the other day. But like, it is, in some companies, it can be an issue, right? And I think that is the hard part for, if you're not a C-level manager, owner of a company, people feel like, I don't know if I should be out there talking about my experience or the company or the industry. Like, should I don't want to get in trouble with it, right? So that was something that we just kind of went past, and it was okay. But each of us in our different careers since in the last few years, I'd say we've each had some little things that come up, and it is something to be mindful of, I think, when you start a show, that maybe we didn't fully think about it. But we're okay. So it's all right. It's all good.
Yeah. And I think I've had some varied experiences, because of when I was at Lexicon, and they were a private company and channel manager, and they were all in, they wanted it done. And then when I left and went to Homes and Villas, like, they didn't make me stop, but I mean, it was certainly, at a public company, you're under a little more like scrutiny in terms of like what you can and can't say. And not that they were never anything but gracious, but I always had to keep that in the back of the mind, that it's like, I have to protect the brand that I work for as much as I have to protect the brand of Alex and Annie. So that is a struggle, I think, that people face, just depending on where you're working. And it is like Alex said, if you're not the decision maker, sometimes you do have to keep things in check. But thankfully, like where I'm at now, Next Packs, and they are all on board and supportive, and it's good for the brand. But again, it's a private company, so they don't have the same kind of watchful group of people that are concerned about maybe what potentially could be out there. So just kind of take it as it goes, or as it comes.
I remember like when Ashley and I started talking about In Haven and me coming over, we had a phone call, and she was like, I want you to know that I love that you have this like personal involvement in the industry that's
Yeah.
separate than the company you work for. And like, I don't find that threatening. I think it's really cool. And I think that like good leaders of companies find that to be like an asset to the company, that you're recognizable and can make connections. And that was like one of the reasons why I decided to go over to Inhaven, because I had some experiences where people were like, I don't know.
Why are you doing that? Yeah.
You should continue your podcast and it can be a distraction. And in so many ways, it's like an outlet. And also, I feel like has always benefited any company that we're attached to, because like the more of a name you have for yourself, of course, the more people start to recognize the brand that you represent as well.
Yeah. I agree with that completely. And I think it's interesting too that you see there's more people, I would say, on the vendor side. And I've been on both and back and forth. And I don't even know if I'm a vendor or a property manager at this point. I mean, I work very intrinsically with my clients that are property managers. So I'm not sure, but I don't like labels either. No labels are conflict. But what I will say is that even if you are a property management company and you might not see value of somebody from your team having a podcast, you have to think about it from the broader perspective of, even when I was at Condo World, I mean this in like a gracious way, the respect and the relationships I was able to form with vendors that performed work for us because of what they saw with the podcast, it certainly helped, right? I mean, like it's when you have a microphone, you're going to get people that are going to want to work with you more and, to be honest, provide better service. And I think that really was a benefit to, the property management business and to any of them now too. So it's like it's not just you have a podcast because you're trying to sell something. It's because you want your voice out there. You want to be, as a employee of the company, learning more about the industry, bringing that knowledge back to the company, but also establishing your reputation, within the community of getting the best service. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it, but I think you really have to, there's a lot to think about at the same time.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
Okay, so you've had over 200 interviews, which is insane, or 200 episodes, a lot of those being interviews. Do you have like a memorable moment that stands out to you that is one of your favorites of the podcast so far?
Honestly, I
for
think
anyone that's not watching, Annie just was like, "Oof, I don't know."
No,
there's so many.
There's one in particular that I won't name names that was just bad, and it was one of those ones that just fell flat. And it was like trying to it was really, really hard. And I learned a lot from that, because it's like not everybody's going to be a good interview. I think that no matter what you think the substance is, or because this person's personality in person was great, so it was like really kind of baffling. But we've done a couple, and we just did one recently with it was the OG women of vacation rentals, but we did the OG men of vacation rentals, and it's all guys from the Panhandle. Them all, like Lino Maldonado, and all the guys that are like started the business in the Panhandle. And I always joke that like some of the best innovations and businesses came out of the Panhandle for vacation rentals, because I really feel that's true. I mean, you look at Key Data, you look at everything that they did with Resort Quest and stuff, but just having those guys on was absolutely hysterical, because it was just like watching a schoolyard like playground situation. Like,
because they've all worked together in different roles over the years, so many times. Like inside jokes are hilarious.
It was that, to me, that's, I think, my favorite in terms of like just good energy and good stuff.
What's funny of our show too is like we'll just randomly, like on a Saturday, we'll text each other, and like I remember that one. It was like, I was like, what if we just that idea just came to me. I'm like, why don't we get all the literally the OGs, the original gangsters of the Panhandle together for an episode? And we've had so many other like fun things like that we've just thought about and brought people together. And it's just, I mean, like when we emailed all of them and asked them to come on the show, within, I would say, 2 minutes, of course, Paul Wolford always responds to every email within 30 seconds. But like Leno, Steve Karen, Jim Olin, they all wrote back like within, I would say, 5 to 10 minutes. I mean, it was very quick. They're all like,
it was very quick. Yeah.
So that was really fun. And I think it was fun for us, I think, also to be part of like them having that reflection back on their time, because, they've been through the thick and thin over the last 30 years in the industry here. But it was a fun one for sure. For my favorite one, honestly, it is definitely very I think I should like make a list maybe of like my top 5 because I don't know if I could pick one, but I will say for this one that immediately came to mind when you asked this question was our first of the month, first of the year episode of 2024 that we filmed, Annie and I together.
Oh yeah.
in Panama City Beach.
Yeah.
And this
You're
was
outside in that one, right?
Yes, we are. Well, for part of it, we were.
It was so windy.
Yeah, we recorded with
Yes.
Michael James outside, and then
Yes.
we had to go inside to record our part. But like, it was. We've obviously realized like we've built the podcast as doing everything remote, but when we're in person, it's so much more fun, and it's fun. Like we feed off of each other really well, and like the energy is there, and it was just the two of us reflecting on what was a crazy 2023 for both of us. I was about to announce I was starting my own business. And so there's just a lot there. And it was just the moment of that podcast, I think was really just, it was a good time. Like it was just a good time, it was a good moment to share together. So we're excited when we get to do live ones. It's a lot of fun. We're going to VR Nation. I'm not sure when this doesn't air tomorrow, but we're heading there in the next couple of days. So it's fun when we can do the show in person, and it's just, makes it a little bit more fun than being on the other side of a mic when you're working remote all the time.
Yeah.
It's so cool. I don't know if you all like remember your first experience with this, but podcasting is always so wild to me because you sit and you have these conversations in a vacuum, or for me, sometimes I'm like just talking to myself. And then I kind of forget that it goes out and actual real people that I know or don't know listen to it.
Listen,
so
right.
when I meet someone in person and like,
Right,
I listen to your podcast. I'm like, really? You do? And I'm sure this happens to y'all all the time. But like the first time that this kind of happened where you went to a show or someone said like, oh my God, I listened to your podcast. Were you like, oh my God, someone's really listening to these?
Yeah. We thought it was, I remember you said you thought it was just your parents. And believe me, we just, in the beginning, we thought it was just our
dads.
Parents. Yeah, our dads mostly,
our dads.
for sure.
Because they were the first. Well, actually, it was our dads and Terry White. Those were the people. Those were the people that gave us like the instant feedback. But I remember, and Alex and I've talked about this. We talked about this with other people. It wasn't so much people saying like, "I listened to you." It was those people that would come up to you and they would talk to you, and you're thinking like, "Do I know you?" Like they're saying all these things about you, and like, "Oh, and this and that," and they're like, "Okay, they know me," but I feel like I don't know them. And you'd have to like kind of humble yourself and go, "I'm so sorry. Did we meet somewhere?" And they're like, "Oh, no. I listened to your podcast." You're like, "Oh, thank God I'm not going crazy."
You entered the podcast space also at such a really interesting time where there really were very, very few hospitality podcasts out there. And I feel like you paved the way in so many ways. Like when I remember when Will approached me to start Workflows and Espressos, I was like, okay, well, I'm nowhere near Alex and Annie, and I have listened to almost all of their episodes. But what you do, both of you do this, like you're very inclusive about the podcasting space, and like you listen to everybody else's podcasts and you support everyone else. And like it's just such an example of what the industry is as a whole. And I had this conversation with Corinne a couple weeks ago, who was on a previous episode. And I said, like, do you think you're always going to be in the industry? And she said, yes, because I can't imagine an industry that is as inclusive as ours and is willing to help not only like a neighbor and a friend, but a competitor, but like anybody, And in Jackson, it's so funny because when I was with Outpost, we would all sit around at the Jackson Hole Lodging Association meetings, like with our competitors, and they would be like, hey, we're having this issue. What software are you guys using for this? And have you experienced this problem before? And it's just, I don't know, it's such an example of our industry. And so I feel like when you both think of your future careers, like, do you always think it's going to be in vacation rentals?
I do. I tried to leave twice.
Yeah,
I have. I mean, I tried to. And
where'd you try and go? This was before me.
I went to a sign company, and then I actually left vacation rentals to be back on the hotel side of things for a hot minute. But yeah, it's just one of those things. It's like it's ingrained in like your DNA at some point, and you just can't survive. I remember feeling like, when I left Expedia before I started with Lexicon, I was like, well, I'm just going to try something completely different, but I still liked like the travel space. So I went to work for a company, and it was very much in the hotel space. And I felt like the life had been sucked out of me because it didn't have the personality. It didn't have the camaraderie. It didn't have that like what I love about the industry is just like, it's always a warm hug wherever you go. I mean, it always is. And like, I'm a hugger. I need that. And hotel business just did not provide that for me.
Yeah.
Are you the same way, Alex?
I agree with that. I think the only thing I would say different is, we love this industry because we love the relationships, the connections that we've made, the history that we've all made together. Like there's something really special to that. And I agree, there's not other industries. I don't think you go to the automotive industry, you're going to find everybody just loves each other and they have all these podcasts and it's all this fun. Like, I don't think it's not as niche, right? Like we're big, but we're niche at the same time. But I think I'll always be in vacation rentals, but I think we as the show and us and just like what we've also built is like, we have not talked about properties at all to this point in the conversation, right? It's not just about the properties. Like we have built something that is, I mean, we have a lot of people that listen to our show that are not in the industry at all, and like religiously listen to the show because they're interested in, and motivated by seeing two women be successful and have a voice. And like, I think there's a lot that we can do that could be, we're always in the industry, but like we're bringing more people into the mix that are not specific to the industry, but are maybe more leadership driven. That I think that appeals to everybody. I mean, the people in vacation rentals are still interested in that, but then of course, people that are not in vacation rentals would be interested in it as well. So I think we'll always have one foot in, or I'll always have one foot in, but there could be a foot that's out, but it's bringing something else into it that is complementary and would grow equally together.
Whenever I think about what else I would do, I'm like, I have considered, I thought one day that maybe I'd work at like Four Seasons corporate. And then I was like, does that really sound like something I would do?
It's hard too, because I mean, your background is interesting too, right? I mean, you were at the rental company and like built that, and like, I mean, your story is so funny. You told it on our podcast last year of like learning reservations and then becoming like the head of revenue and then like leading key data and all this stuff, and then you going to Outpost, like you had and now in Haven, like you've had a very like impressive career that's been compounded over time and experience. But it's like, you don't, in the moment, you don't always know why these different opportunities are happening or changing for you, but your experience is there. And it is really weird to think about like, okay, I'm just going to go do something completely different. I think maybe it's not industry specific, but the skills and the things that you've learned, how you leverage and how you bring people together is where like that sweet spot is for me. At least. I think that's,
and I think the cool thing, is because I feel like, you're kind of just a few years behind me in terms of like having that diverse, experience, Meaghan. Like, I when Alex and I started the show, I remember we had dinner with Amber and we're talking about like, I just didn't know where my place fit because I felt like I looked back at my experience and it was so all over the place. And then I remember Amber was like, that's your superpower, like that you have all these pieces of experience that you can talk to all the different parts of the industry and be what they need you to be like for that conversation. And it was the first time that I realized like, because I kept saying, oh, I'm like this, like this mutt, like I don't have a pedigree, that's the only way I could describe it. But I feel like now I've understood like that's a strength. It's not a weakness that I don't like. Alex has a very strong skill set in marketing and like she owns that. And I was like, okay, I kept comparing myself to her and like, she has this thing that, people hold her up to such high esteem in this area. And I'm like, what do I have? I don't have any of those. I have like people go, oh, stuff about stuff. But that's where my strength came in is I know a lot of stuff about a lot of stuff. Could I connect you to someone I know a bit of, enough about marketing that I would connect you to Alex or somebody else. Like, so I think that's a strength that I have that I didn't realize was a strength. And that's one thing I like about this industry is that people will look beyond kind of like that title and say like, what do you bring to the table? And how
really
do you bring value?
That's one, I agree with that. And like, that's 100% what I've learned in the last year that, I mean, in my fractional CMO business, like, I am not just doing marketing for companies. I mean, like it's, the people hire you when you get to this experience and you have these connections, they're hiring you for you, right? And like they know you know a lot of stuff about a lot of stuff, like you say. And it's like, yeah, okay, marketing is my lane, for you it's distribution and OTAs and stuff. But like both of us collectively, and Meaghan, you're the same way too. I mean, like we all know a lot about this industry that, I think it's, you have to sometimes like not think about yourself categorically as this is what I know and this is what I'm marketing. I can market myself about. It's your brand and what you're selling is you, like that's what it is. Like, and that's, because of the podcast, I think we've gotten to a position that people know us so much more that is a good thing. And it's interesting though.
It's so funny. I always think to myself, like, when I started at 360, I was 22, had no experience, like I told you all last year. And I ended up in this leadership position that I remember being like underqualified for, but also thinking to myself, in what other industry can you come in without a lot of prior experience or formal training or an MBA and still be taken seriously? And that's what I think is so cool about this industry, is like now I'm in my 30s and I have as much experience as someone who has like run businesses that does have a lot of degrees behind them. And I think that's so rare to find. And it's one of the benefits of working in a smaller industry where there isn't a lot of like professional training required to start. And I feel like we're so lucky for that reason.
It also gives us the opportunity to kind of like pave our own way. People say it's the Wild West, but the nice thing about the Wild West is there's no rules, like you can, and that's, it makes the industry both fun and challenging at the same time, because the fact that there are no rules means it's like every time you step out and do something, you're really figuring it out. There's not a lot of people to go to get this advice on what to do, what not to do. And every market is different, and every, owner relationship is like, there's so many nuances that you have to navigate that it actually is probably good that you haven't been formally trained. It's like people that go to hospitality school, and I used to joke when they'd come for spring break and they're like, I'm in the hospitality program at XYZ school and this is not how it works. I'm like, well, when you get in the real hospitality world, you're in for like a real treat, because this is how it works, So I think maybe that's a good thing about it, is because we're not, there's no like, black and white that we come into, that it's set in stone that you have to be a certain way or think a certain way, and we get to be who we are, and that's what's so beautiful about this industry, is everybody can be who they are, and it's welcome.
Yeah.
Travis always, what does he say when you get into vacation rentals, you enter the school of hard knocks? Did he make this up?
Yeah.
It's true, right? Yeah, going to like the Cornell School of Hospitality, and
I did, like, exactly. Besides that one time he went to Cornell, yeah,
exactly.
Okay, so both of you have been on the PM side and the supplier side, and this is a journey that I have recently made, as we know. So I'm very curious, do you have a preference of one side or the other? And if not, what are some like the biggest pros on both, and then the biggest cons that you've seen? I've like fully now experienced my first cons on the supplier side, which was very shocking, but I like love it so far. So I'm curious.
Well, if you're a property manager, you get invited to all the parties. If you're a vendor, you don't, and you can't go to certain conferences. I would say that's the very stark difference. I think that, again, I don't like labels. I think that the industry is better because of the vendors that are in our space. I truly believe that. And no, does everybody want to be sold to like used car salesmen? No, absolutely not. But a lot of the technology and advancements have come from the vendor side. So I think the notion and the ration that it's a bad thing to have them part of these events is just absolutely ludicrous. But I think that it blurs the line. We're all in the same industry. We're all working for the same thing. We're all trying to put, a roof over our heads and food on the plate at night. So let's figure out a way to work together that's a little bit more symbiotic. I mean, I think everybody does, but I think it's the conference organizers that like just really try and separate everybody. I mean, even sometimes we've been a few years ago, we were at shows where the vendors and the property managers couldn't even sit together at lunch.
Yeah.
I mean, and that makes zero sense. Like, just absolutely insane, right? So I don't like the stuff like that. But I think It's hard to say. From a work perspective, because right now in my own fractional CMO business, I work with property management companies and I work with technology providers. So I'm still doing actually both. And I don't know that one is my favorite more than the other. I think it comes down to it's based on the people that I work with at those companies who I enjoy working with more. To be honest, like it's to me, I'm not categorically in love with one or the other. It's about the feeling and the brand and the movement of the company that you're with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like the one positive for me is you get to own your weekends a little easier than you did when you were in the,
Oh, that's a good point.
the property management. I mean, that's like the obvious plus. But I think what's interesting to Alex's point is that I feel like there are more people in the vendor space that were managers before. So it always strikes me when we have these conversations about like vendors not being welcome or not being invited or put in. It's like most of us were on that side at some point. I mean, that's why a lot of companies started was because there was somebody who said like, this could be better. I have an idea to make it better. And they created something. And so yeah, I do think that there's a shift in that. I know I'm on several VRMA committees and that's a lot of conversation that is had is like, how do we make people feel more welcomed on all aspects of it? You know, how do you make a manager not feel like they're being attacked by the selling? And how do you make the vendor who, let's face it, if it weren't for a lot of the vendors, like you wouldn't be able to put on these large scale events because you have these big sponsorships that are involved. So it's trying to find the balance. And I think we're at a point right now where that conversation is out, where for a while it was very much like people just got their feelings hurt and would walk away and talk in a corner with their friends. And it was just like, you felt like you couldn't say it. And I think enough people finally started saying, well, we need to say something because we need to make it better. But I'm with Alex. I mean, I loved the property management side, and I say it all the time. Like my husband and I started a company, and it had not been for the partner that we were with and what he ended up doing, we probably would have stayed. Now, Hurricane Michael could have changed that if it had hit the beach and like devastated our beach, and we'd gone through that. But I like both sides of it. I mean, I love it. But the definite plus is being able to own your weekends, you know?
Yeah, there's a different kind of work-life balance, which is really nice. What I didn't expect, like I was very nervous moving over to the supplier side, but based on my relationships with existing suppliers, I was like, I hope that all suppliers like still want to be my friend when I'm not a property manager anymore. But then when you're a property manager, you're kind of like, are we only hanging out because you want me to buy this?
Right.
And this, which is not true.
Did you get invited to the party because you're the popular girl or because you really are
you feel way more popular when you're a popular
Sure.
You know what's also been interesting in my experience too, when I was at Condo World, we were property management business, managed 500 properties, but we also were an OTA for the entire region of Myrtle Beach, booked for 5,000 other properties, and we're expanding into Florida at one point. And because of that, I always got into certain conversations with different associations of, are you a property manager or are you a supplier? And I'd have to say both. And it was so funny when I left Condo World to go to Casago, because the same thing happened again. That Casago was a property management business, but also a supplier because we had the franchise model. So I'm like, I was meant to live in this world of like hybrid, we all work together, like no conflicts, like put in one, take the labels off. We're all good here.
I agree with you though. Like we all have the same, like with VRMA, and my involvement there just on the committee side. And Annie, I feel like you're the same way. Like one can't exist without the others, right? Like property managers have to have these suppliers and technology providers in order to do their job more efficiently. And suppliers obviously have to have property management companies. And so it's kind of like, what came first? And no, I agree. I do think that there is like the barrier is falling. It felt like maybe even like a year ago, and especially 2 years ago, it was very much like there was this stark difference. Like we can't sit together at lunch and we don't want to be sold to. And now that feels like it's going away a little bit, which I'm excited about.
Yeah, I feel there's a lot more collaboration between the two sides that didn't exist before because people understand the value in having those conversations as opposed to like ignoring them or putting them in private conversation. Like you can have them out in the open now and it's okay.
Okay. So this is kind of switching gears, but I'm thinking about this too, based on all the interviews that you have had over the last several years. Is there something that you see property managers doing that make them exceptional, right? Or is there one thing that property managers who are doing things really well have in common?
I feel like the ones that we've talked to, what I've seen myself, is that they value, first and foremost, their staff. And the ones that have things in place to not only reward the staff, but really elevate them like personally and take care of their mental health and foster open dialogue and are continually training, and having come from an environment where it was like, unless you were in a certain echelon, you didn't know anything that was going on. You were just always kind of like fed stuff at meetings. Like, I think it's really important to value your staff. And I use like two examples. Rachel and Rob Allday. I mean, like they are really great in terms of like really ensuring that their staff is taken care of. And Robin Cragen is the same way. Like, take care of your staff, and they're going to take care of your guests and your owners. And I think that to me is I think becoming the new normal, but it wasn't for a long time, because hospitality workers in general were seen as disposable and didn't need to be around.
Mm-hmm.
You could replace them very easily, and there was no sense in like fostering a long-term relationship with those people. And so I think that there's been a shift, and maybe COVID did it, because people just got in a situation where everybody was in the weeds when everything blew open again, that they found ways to work together that they hadn't before. But I feel that that's what I see that's the best businesses are doing, is taking care of their staff and their teams.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. I mean, the companies that focus on culture and trying to have that inclusive experience for their employees to keep them for the longer term, for sure. I mean, like, there's a lot of the companies in our industry that have been kind of leaders of the pack for many years. A lot of them have very little turnover. I mean, at Condo World, I think our least amount of experience of a employee was like 5 years. I mean, like, everybody had been there for a long time. Yeah. And that just shows a lot about the business, that they take care of their employees, they care about you, and they want to make sure that you have a good career where you're at. And in turn, you'll become very loyal to the company, and you will make sure that they're successful too. I also think that nowadays it's becoming more common for companies to focus on SOPs and documentation, and not just having everything up in your head. And like, if the proverbial bus comes along and somebody's not here anymore, what do we do? That's a problem. Like, I think companies are really trying to lean into task management and programs that like outline how they handle certain things. And I think that's really come from the whole discussion of like, how do you scale what you're doing? And that's a whole nother topic, but it's like, a lot of companies, they might think I want to scale, but maybe they don't want to scale. But what they do want to be able to do is offer that consistent service forevermore, right? It's not just because there's 3 people that are here that are great reservationists, are answering the phones. If they're not here, we all should know what we're doing, and we can't call somebody to figure out how we did something. So that's been like the biggest shift, I think, from like, the olden days to now what we have going on.
Yeah.
I think that's more common of the effort being focused on that side.
I feel like staffing became such a big issue, and like, it's really hard to hire people that want to work for a vacation rental company once they see what the work actually looks like. And, property managers started to realize like, oh, hiring is really hard. We better retain the people that we do have. And what does that look like? Well, building a really good company culture. Jeremy Sprinkle at 360, he always used to say that if you make employees raving fans of the company, they're going to work really hard for you. And so the company's going to be better and more profitable, and owners are going to be happier, and guests are going to be happier because your employees are happy, and like, they want to work hard for you because you created this culture. And that could not be more true to me.
Yeah.
It's 100%. I mean, people get passionate about things that they're passionate about. And if you make them passionate about where they go every day, they're going to be passionate about how they handle it and what they do with it.
We just had Boogie Wittenberg on our show, who's the new CEO of Track and Travel Net last week. And great episode, great guy. And he had so many good just like nuggets of like true leadership type things that he said. That there's two that come to mind. One was, it's a good employee when no one's watching them and they have to make a decision. They're going to do they don't have to ask what to do. They're going to do what's in the best interest of the customer to make sure that customer is okay. Like that's huge, right? I mean, like you have to instill in your people, like, do the right thing, like have the right values there. And then the other thing he said too was, I want people that, like, their best ideas come from when they're in the shower or when they're driving to work, not just when they're sitting behind their desk because now I'm working from 9 to 5 and this is what I need to be thinking about. They're thinking about work when they're not even at work, right? I mean, like, it's like things are popping in their mind because they're excited about it. And I think I totally agree with that, but it's a great way to think about it. And you do that by rewarding your team, taking care of them. And like, they're always going to protect you and your company if you do so.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more. I'm very excited to listen to that episode, by the way. Boogie is great. Like, I've only met him in person once, and he's memorable like the second that you run into him.
Oh, for sure. Not only is his name fabulous, he's a little like Spitfire. Local guy. Yeah.
Okay. Alex, Annie, thank you so much for being on Workflows and Espressos. I have one more question for you. What is your go-to coffee order?
Oh, I'm just a blonde roast with cream. I'm a basic girl. Yeah.
Sugar? No.
No sugar.
She said what coffee, not describe yourself, Annie.
Oh, well. Sorry.
I'm just kidding. No, I would say probably just like a cafe latte. I don't think either of us are huge. I like coffee. I love coffee, but like, I'm not a huge coffee snob that like I have to have certain drinks. Like, it's more about like what level of gasoline do I need to get going?
Yeah.
Just a straight espresso shot or not? But
how bad is it today?
Well, obviously that's a big part of your business, so we're happy to start learning more.
My husband has two coffee makers, or we have two coffee makers. My husband has ones where he can grind his own beans and like be done with it and make lattes and espresso, cappuccino. All, and I have like, mine is just the drip. I put my grounds in and make my coffee, and we just have two separate sides of the station that is my coffee and his coffee. I can't do all the crazy stuff, but
it's when I went to Costco University and I stayed in one of Steve's condos that he owned. It was a beautiful penthouse, and I'm probably saying it wrong. Jura coffee machine.
Yeah, the Jura.
Yeah, it's like the highest end coffee machine. He had one of those in there, and oh my God, that was the best coffee I think I've ever had, to be honest. I
thing is
just
crazy.
recently looked it up for my husband's birthday. I'm like, oh my God, it's like $3,000. It's a good coffee machine, so that'd be my favorite. But I just have to say,
well, we did have coffee in Italy, and that was like jet fuel.
Oh my God, at that conference, do you remember those little? Oh,
like these little, they come in these little shot cups, and it's like literally jet fuel. But it's funny because my company is based in the Netherlands, and they always make fun because I have my big giant cup of coffee with, and they're like, they drink these little, like, they're just a little sip of coffee, and I'm like, you guys drink jet fuel. I like need mine like watered down with enough cream to make it palatable. But European coffee is a whole different level of.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure.
I actually don't drink coffee, and I ended up working for a company that had a coffee company. So I learned a lot about, like, I know a good amount about coffee. I just don't like it.
You don't drink coffee or espresso at all?
And your show is espresso.
No. Yeah, so it's funny. So Will named the show, and when he approached me about it, I was like, I have to tell you something. I don't drink coffee.
Oh,
what do I do? And he was like, that's okay. That's okay. Like, it's fine. We can keep the name, and you can just like either pretend that you drink coffee, or you could roll with it and say that you don't.
Oh my God.
And yeah, so I know a good amount, and my husband drinks so much coffee, but yeah, I'm kind of with you guys. I'll do it at Christmas if it's like a white chocolate mocha with 500 calories. But aside from that, coffee gal.
That is funny. Wow.
Well, thank you. Thank you both for being here. I always love when I get to catch up with you two, and I'm so excited to see you next month at the Executive Summit in Miami, and trying to figure out how we can all find a way to just stay indefinitely. So thank you again for being here, and can't wait for next time.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Thank you for having us, Meaghan. It's a pleasure.
Bye.